Good evening, Vaultec residents. I hope you've been enjoying the long weekend, wherever you are. Jologic here, bringing you the Sunday evening edition of the Wasteland Capillionaire's Business Report. In current news, a slow start to the holiday weekend, as many found it quite challenging to find those holiday scorched while searching across Appalachia. Well, it seems the powers that be empathized with your frustration and increased their spawn rate exponentially. Hopefully that has helped, and you were able to tag more of them in your travels. There's still one more half day of double script, double gold, and caps aplenty, so cash in while you still can. Tomorrow, remember to visit Smiley over at the Wayward to grab a maximum of 300 gold bullion at a cost of up to 6,000 of your caps. A mere drop in the bucket for a Wasteland Capillionaire. Now it is time to have a look at how vendor sales went over the weekend. I would like to highlight some of the best selling plans, which I refer to as rockets. These are the plans that sold remarkably fast. The moment a player with enough caps found them in the vendor, well, they took off like a rocket. And we'll have a look at a few bombs. Those are the plans that were just, well, a complete disaster. Well, the top 10 rocket plans that generated the greatest profits over the weekend were end tables, magazine racks, spinning racks, high-tech light sets, electric chairs, sirens, eatotronics, televisions, table televisions, and modern TVs. The accumulated net profits from the sales of these 10 plans amounted to over 170,000 caps. This is more than 45% of the total net profit of sales all weekend. Gross sales was 580,000 caps, less the 58,000 caps paid in tax at the point of sale, for a gross profit of 522,000 caps. Now, after expenses, the total net profit from all weekend vendor sales was 375,000 caps. Overall, a very successful weekend. Now, a look at the bombs. Well, this weekend there were a few non-movers. Advanced power connectors, bow arrows, decontamination showers, musket stack monuments, power armor stations, and Exo-1 headlamps. Some of these plans tend to be more commonly available than the others, and in the case of the musket stack monument, as I mentioned before, it's unlikely people will buy the current event plans while the event is still underway. When these bombs hit the vendor again, they will likely be reduced in price to see if they move. Now, I'd like to answer a few questions from our viewers. Shudo78 and many others want to know, "Hey Joe, how did you first get started vending plans?" Well, that's kind of an interesting story. I'm kind of flattered that you've asked. I remember building my first camp back in May of 2019. It wasn't anything special. This was a few months after the stash box weight limit had increased from 600 to 800 pounds in February of that year. I had built an open-faced camp out on the water right beside the Nuka-Cola bottling plant. I started selling common plans for a few caps each, and boy, I struggled to accumulate any caps, for obvious reasons. And at that time, the max cap limit was about 25,000 caps. And an update in August 2019 increased the limit to 30,000 caps, putting it that much further beyond my grasp. I used to farm purified water every day just to collect the daily caps from the robot vendors. And although I tried to save what I could, I spent several months struggling with sales just to try to make max caps. I tried selling a little bit of everything, and that didn't change until almost a year later, when the Wastelanders arrived in April of 2020, and then I practically stumbled upon being a rare plans vendor. It was a dark and stormy night when I came upon the Ohio River Adventures, which had recently been taken over by a group of raiders. I used to loot that location often, and one day I noticed a piece of paper on the ground, right there in front of the bait and tackle shack. I had never noticed it before. It turned out to be a recipe I didn't know. Wowee, this surprised me. I quickly found out that each day the recipe spawned anew, and so I placed it in my vendor, and to my joy, the people that stopped by purchased it. So every day I would restock it, and every day I would sell it. I surely was onto something here, and that's precisely how I started out as a Rare Plants vendor. Shady Brady 77 asks, "Hey Joe, how do you determine your pricing?" I'm so glad you asked. Once I found that recipe that started me on the path to becoming a Wasteland Capillionaire, I put it in my vendor for a measly 99 caps. After it sold, I put it in again at a price of 111 caps, and it sold again. That very next day I raised the price to 222 caps, but I was pretty sure no one would pay such an exorbitant price. Boy, I sure was wrong. I restocked it at 555 caps, because that was so ridiculously high, I couldn't believe anyone would purchase it. But they did. I put it in the vendor every day for 3 whole weeks at 777 caps, and golly, I don't know why, but it just kept selling. I had found a few other plants nestled away here and there, and I put them in my vendors right beside the first one. And sure enough, as the sun rises each morning, I was making sales left, right, and center. People were stopping by, waving and cheering. They were so darn happy to find a plant they needed, it didn't seem to matter the price. But it wasn't all sugar bombs and fancy lad cakes. I had some hits and I had some misses. If I priced a plant way up in the hundreds and it didn't move, well, I had no choice but to lower the price right back down, even to the point where I was just giving it away. You see, I added more plans, and I moved the prices around, up and down, and I paid attention. That's just how I determined my pricing, and I'll keep doing it, that to this day. And it's been a good year to learn, and that's just what I did. An anonymous fan asks, "Hey Joe, I sell all my plans for under 50 caps each. Why should I price them any higher?" Well, friend, if you're selling plans for under 50 caps each, you will need to sell thousands to reach max caps. Sometimes other players will rebuttal that caps aren't really worth much anymore, and they don't really hold much value, but I don't disagree with them. No, but if they feel caps are a worthless currency, then also consider that the player who is holding lots of caps may feel the exact same way. So a Wasteland Capillionaire has no qualms about dropping 1,000 caps or more on something they need. Just as easy as dropping 15K for an overpriced item. That is, if they need it. It is absolutely wonderful that you sell your plans on the cheap, and for many of the players out there appreciate exactly what you're doing. And I do too. Caps sure can't buy you happiness, my friend. Now, we have come to the end of another episode, and I would like to thank you again for tuning in to Jologic's Sunday evening edition of the Wasteland Capillionaire's Business Report. Until next time, Vault-Tec residents, be safe out there. After all, it is a wasteland.